Usually, when a real moment of crisis hits, like when the uncertainty suddenly spikes in your life, there's this overwhelming expectation of just, well, immediate action.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
You get the bad news or your phone lights up with all these urgent notifications and the metaphorical alarm bells start ringing, and your instinct is just to move. Like, do something, intervene, just fix the problem before it gets any worse.
Right. And I mean, that reaction, it's a hardwired survival mechanism.
Biologically speaking, you mean?
Exactly. The human brain literally interprets stillness during a threat as a fatal vulnerability. We are biologically conditioned to associate frantic movement with somehow taking control of a dangerous situation.
Wow. So we just assume moving equals surviving.
Pretty much, even if the movement is completely chaotic.
Well, today we are going to flip that deeply ingrained survival instinct entirely on its head. Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're digging into an ancient, very quiet, and honestly, almost uncomfortably restrained text. It's the 18th chapter of the biblical book of Isaiah.
Yeah, and reading a text like this, it really requires looking at the underlying mechanics of how situations develop.
Right, because our mission today is to look way beyond the surface-level historical reading of, distant nations. We want to decode a surprisingly urgent masterclass on decision-making, patience, and how you can navigate the overwhelming uncertainty of modern life.
Which is so crucial right now. By analyzing the themes of timing and trust embedded in this prophecy, we can extract some really profound practical lessons. Lessons about how divine wisdom actively challenges our modern obsession with immediate reaction.
Okay, let's unpack this, because to find the solution, we have to deeply understand the problem first. And Isaiah lays out the anatomy of human panic right at the very start of the chapter.
It really does.
Yeah, it opens with this chaotic, almost cinematic energy. The text describes a, quote, land shadowing with wings, unquote, beyond the rivers of Ethiopia. Then you get this incredibly vivid image of people sending ambassadors by the sea in swift vessels of bulrushes across the waters.
So let's ground that imagery in the brutal geopolitical reality of the 8th century BC.
Okay.
The world was terrified, like absolutely terrified. The Assyrian Empire was basically functioning like the Borg of the ancient Middle East.
Wait, the Borg? Like assimilate or be destroyed?
Exactly. They were this unstoppable military machine, assimilating or destroying everything in their path. Israel and all the surrounding nations, including the Kushite Empire, which the text calls Ethiopia, were just in an absolute panic.
Right, so everyone is scrambling.
Yeah, they were desperately trying to form rapid military alliances just to survive. And those vessels of bulrushes that are mentioned...
Their boats, yeah.
Right, they were these incredibly lightweight papyrus reed boats engineered for maximum speed. I mean, they were basically the rapid communication network, the fiber optic cables of the ancient world, just darting up and down the Nile to coordinate a defense.
That historical context completely changes how the next lines feel, honestly, because the text commands, quote, go ye swift messengers to a nation scattered and peeled, a nation meted out and trodden down.
Mm-hmm.
But I have to stop here, because those archaic terms like scattered and peeled or meted out, I mean, these sound poetic, but they really obscure what is actually being said.
Yeah, the English translation obscures a very specific description there. Scatter and peeled is better understood from the original Hebrew as referring to a people who are tall and smooth-skinned, or like bronzed.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, it's a direct reference to the fierce, imposing Nubian warriors of the Kushite Empire. And a nation meted out and trodden down refers to a land that has been measured out by conquering armies.
So they're powerful, but they're still terrified.
Exactly. The prophet is describing a formidable people who are nevertheless operating under this terrifying shadow of impending conquest.
Right. And then the text zooms out from these swift boats to the entire globe. It says, all ye inhabitants of the world and dwellers on the earth, see ye, when he lifteth up an ensign on the mountains, and when he bloweth a trumpet, hear ye.
Ensigns are basically warning flags.
Yeah, warning flags are flying, trumpets are blaring, the whole world is on high alert. And bringing this into a modern context for you listening, that ancient scene is the exact feeling of, like, a corporate emergency where everyone is suddenly on a Zoom call.
Oh, totally.
Right. Like, everyone is talking over each other, trying to implement a strategy before anyone even understands what the problem actually is. We basically become those swift messengers on the water.
Yeah, just paddling frantically just to feel like we're managing the threat.
Exactly.
Well, the psychological phenomenon you were describing there is actually known as action bias.
Action bias.
Yeah. The human mind hates ambiguity far more than it hates negative outcomes.
Wait, really? We'd rather have a bad outcome than not know what's happening.
Honestly, yes. When faced with the unknown, like the looming threat of the Assyrian army back then, or, a sudden crisis in your career today, the tension of waiting just becomes physically intolerable.
So we just do something, anything.
Right. We launch the papyrus boats and we blow the trumpets simply to relieve our own internal anxiety. We operate under this massive delusion that movement equals progress.
Man, that is the trap right there. We constantly mistake urgency for clarity.
We do.
But urgency is just adrenaline. Clarity is actual vision.
That's a great way to put it because acting out of pure urgency without clarity is, well, it's like driving a car at 100 miles an hour into a thick bank of fog.
Oh, man.
The
Yeah.
speed gives you the illusion of making progress, right?
Hmm.
But the velocity is actually what guarantees the crash.
That is terrifying, but so true.
And most catastrophic decisions, the ones that multiply a crisis rather than actually containing it, they occur when leaders act on the adrenaline of the trumpet blast rather than taking an objective assessment of the landscape.
Because the panic just narrows your vision entirely. I mean, when you are emotionally absorbed inside the crisis, sprinting with those messengers, your amygdala is hijacked. You literally cannot see the whole board because your brain is entirely focused on the immediate threat directly in front of you.
Which is exactly why the transition in the very next verse of Isaiah provides such a shocking contrast to human nature.
Oh, yeah.
Just as the global panic reaches its absolute peak, the text shifts its focus to the posture of the divine.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because this is the wildest pivot in the text. Verse 4 reveals what God is actually doing while the messengers are sprinting and the warning flags are flying.
Yeah.
It says, "For so the Lord said unto me, I will take my rest, and I will consider in my dwelling place like a clear heat upon herbs, and like a cloud of dew in the heat of harvest."
It's incredible imagery.
It is, but I have to push back on the theology here just a little bit. The whole world is facing this existential military threat. People are terrified. And God is essentially enjoying the morning dew and quietly observing. I mean, it feels, honestly, uncomfortably indifferent.
Well, the contrast is deliberately jarring. It's meant to challenge our definition of power.
How so?
Well, human beings view power as the ability to exert immediate force. We equate intervention with care. If you care, you'd do something right now.
Right. You jump in and save the day.
Exactly. But the theology of divine restraint suggests something entirely counterintuitive. The strongest strategic move is often the refusal to engage prematurely.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. God isn't being passive here. God is demonstrating the massive advantage of the pause.
I am kind of stuck on that specific imagery, actually, like a clear heat upon herbs. It's not a violent storm sweeping in to destroy the Assyrians. It's not a blazing fire. It's that shimmering, silent, oppressive heat that just sits heavily over a field in the middle of summer. I mean, it does not move.
Thermodynamics actually provides a great lens for that metaphor.
Thermodynamics. Okay, I'm listening.
Yeah. That clear heat might be invisible, and it might be silent, but it is deeply active. It is the exact environmental condition required to ripen the crop.
Oh, I see.
Slower response times give you a similar invisible advantage in a crisis. Think about the mechanics of a crisis as a massive dust storm kicked up by a stampede.
Right.
If you run into the dust cloud to solve the problem immediately, you are completely blind. You can't see anything. But by choosing to stand still and observe, you allow the dust to settle.
And then the landscape eventually reveals itself.
Exactly. Choosing not to react right away prevents you from manufacturing new crises out of your own panic.
That makes a lot of sense.
Mm.
But creating that distance from the emotional reactivity of the moment is incredibly difficult.
Yes.
I mean, we feel that visceral demand to act, but we have to actively choose the pause.
It's hard work.
Yeah, our prefrontal cortex needs that time to come back online so we can actually evaluate the threat instead of just swinging wildly at it. But that waiting period isn't permanent, right? The silent heat eventually breaks.
Right, because the pause is a calculation. It is preparation for incredibly precise action.
So verses 5 and 6 introduce this agricultural imagery that is incredibly vivid, but also quite harsh. The text shifts from the quiet heat to sudden intervention. It says, for the harvest, when the bud is perfect and the sour grape is ripening in the flower, he shall both cut off the sprigs with pruning hooks and take away and cut down the branches.
And then the remnants are left for the fowls of the mountains and the beasts of the earth.
Exactly.
Notice the excruciating specificity of the timing there. The action does not occur when the messengers sound the alarm.
No.
The action happens, quote, "afore the harvest, when the bud is perfect."
That precision, it reminds me of a master chef taking a highly delicate dish, like a souffle, out of the oven.
Oh yeah, great analogy.
Because the sheer effort of mixing the ingredients and managing the temperature is entirely irrelevant if the timing is off. Like you pull it out 2 minutes early and it just collapses into liquid. Leave it in 2 minutes too long and it burns. The underlying mechanism here is that timing completely overrides effort.
It does. Doing the exact right thing at the wrong time still guarantees a failure. The divine pause we discussed earlier is specifically designed to wait for that singular moment when the bud is perfect.
So what does that mean for us practically?
Well, it means discipline requires the restraint to withhold your effort until the environment is actually ready to receive it.
But the reality of that perfect moment in the text is a massive cutback. I mean, the sour grape is ripening, the flower is blooming, things appear to be progressing beautifully, and then suddenly a sharp blade cuts the sprigs off. The branches are severed and literally left on the ground for wild animals.
Yeah, it's brutal.
For anyone applying this to their own life, that doesn't feel like a victory. That feels like a devastating loss.
It is a profound loss, and we really have to acknowledge the difficult truth embedded in the concept of the pruning hook. Human beings operate under a very linear assumption of growth.
Like step A leads to step B.
Exactly. We believe that if we plant a seed, water it diligently, and wait patiently, we are somehow owed a specific, bountiful harvest. But viticulture, which is the science of growing grapes, it tells a very different story.
Yeah, because you can invest years of energy into a process, do everything correctly, follow all the best practices, and still watch the project unexpectedly dismantled.
Yeah.
Like the job offer is suddenly rescinded.
Right.
The long-term relationship abruptly ends, or the funding for your initiative just dries up.
Right. But pruning in viticulture is not a punishment for a failing vine. It is a violent necessity for the long-term survival of a healthy one.
Wait, a necessity?
Absolutely. Branches are severed so the root system can actually survive the winter, or to radically redirect the plant's energy for a future yield that the current structure couldn't even support.
Wow, okay.
If you hold a rigid expectation of exactly how your life is supposed to develop, the pruning hook will shatter you. Adaptability requires understanding that suddenly losing what you spent years building might actually be a necessary redirection rather than a personal failure.
Man, reframing sudden loss as strategic pruning is a heavy lift, though, especially when you are the branch lying on the ground.
Oh, without a doubt.
It demands this level of flexibility where you have to stop tying your entire identity to one specific outcome. You basically have to trust the gardener rather than the grape.
That is a perfect way to put it. Trust the gardener. Which perfectly sets up the resolution of this entire prophecy, because the narrative arc does not end with severed branches left to the beasts of the earth.
No, it doesn't. The chapter concludes with verse 7, jumping forward in time to reveal the ultimate outcome. So after the global panic, the silent divine observation, and then the sharp pain of the pruning hooks, the text says, "In that time shall the present be brought unto the Lord of hosts, of a people scattered and peeled, to the place of the name of the Lord of hosts, the Mount Zion."
And we have to recognize who that is. The people bringing the gift to Mount Zion are the exact same formidable bronzed warriors who were terrified and launching swift boats back in verse 1.
Wait, really? They survived?
They survived. The Assyrian threat, the panic, the waiting, it all culminated in a peaceful resolution where the former victims are now bringing a tribute.
Wow. But this exposes a massive challenge for us in our daily lives, doesn't it?
How so?
Well, when you are stuck in verse 1, listening to the alarm bells, or you're suffering through verse 5, feeling the sharp cut of the pruning hook, you have no idea that verse 7 even exists.
That's true.
You cannot see the peaceful resolution. You only experience the chaos and the loss.
Yeah, but time is the ultimate clarifying agent. The fundamental rule demonstrated by the conclusion of Isaiah 18 is that outcomes eventually reveal themselves if you just possess the endurance to let them develop. We demand immediate answers, mostly because we just cannot tolerate the suspense of the middle chapters.
Yeah. So, I mean, bringing this all together for you, the listener, how does an ancient text about Ethiopian ambassadors and pruning hooks actively strengthen your relationship with God today?
It's a great question.
I think it directly addresses the crisis of silence. Because when you are begging for a resolution to a severe problem, or you're praying for direction, and you receive absolutely zero immediate feedback, the default human interpretation is abandonment.
Exactly. You assume the silence means God is either absent or just entirely indifferent to your suffering.
Right. But the concept of the clear heat dismantles the idea that silence equaled absence.
Hmm.
Restraint is a highly active strategic posture. By learning to step back and observe the entire board rather than reactively swinging at every trumpet blast, you actually begin to align your own responses with divine timing. You stop forcing premature answers.
And it fundamentally shifts your baseline, too. You move from this exhausting state of anxious reaction to a really grounded state of strategic trust.
Yeah.
Holding your ground and allowing a confusing situation to unfold requires significantly more internal fortitude than just throwing a frantic, temporary fix at the wall. It's so true. Okay, let's distill the practical mechanics we've extracted from this deep dive into some actionable insights for you. First, interrogate your urgency. You need to recognize the vessels of bulrushes in your own behavior. Just because a situation feels incredibly tense does not mean immediate movement will actually solve it.
Right. Second, weaponize the pause. When the dust storm of a crisis kicks up, deliberately slow your response time. You have to allow your executive function to assess the landscape before your emotional center just launches a counterattack.
Third, respect the absolute necessity of timing over effort. Wait for the precise moment to act. Remember the perfect bud. And fourth, maintain radical flexibility. When the pruning hooks inevitably cut down something you valued, trust that the redirection serves a larger architecture you cannot yet see.
You know, it is genuinely incredible how an obscure 8th century BC prophecy provides such a razor-sharp psychological framework for surviving modern uncertainty.
It really is.
I want to leave you with a final, highly specific scenario to consider.
Very soon, perhaps even later today, you are going to experience that physical, adrenaline-fueled surge of urgency. It might be a highly critical email from a colleague, a sudden financial roadblock, or, a tense family conflict that practically screams for you to immediately retaliate or fix it.
Yeah, we've all been there.
When you feel that internal trumpet blast, remember the power of the clear heat upon herbs. You always have the option to let the dust settle.
How will you apply this information in your life?